Jake here for American Trucks, and today I am taking a look at these LED fog lights with smoked lenses for 2019 to 2021 Silverado 1500s. If you're looking to change up the style or just add some additional lighting to the front end of your Silverado in a way that is clean, factory fresh, and budget friendly, then these fog lights are going to be worth taking a look at. Now, maybe you missed out on the factory fog light option when you got your truck, or you got it used, or you might have also banged one up out there like so many of us have done. Either way, it is a great time to make an upgrade, and having a nice set of fog lights on your truck is beyond worthwhile because it's going to change up not just the looks but also the functionality of your truck. If you want that added visibility and more light output, these are a great supplement to the rest of your truck's lighting. Now, these are an OEM style, but they are not made by GM. So while they're going to look and act very similar to the ones you could get from the factory on your Silverado, these are not a GM part, so just keep that in mind before you buy. The benefit here, though, is that you get something that is very similar to the factory setup at a much lower price. Now, of course, there are plenty of aftermarket lights that you could tack onto your truck, but they're always going to look like an aftermarket piece, and that's fine if that's the look that you're going for. But if you want something that looks a lot closer to factory, then this is the kind of option you're going to want to consider. These are housed in an OEM grade ABS plastic housing with these cool smoked polycarbonate lenses. So you get a bit of a stealthy look. And again, they're going to appear factory, and this smoked lens is going to blend in nicely down at the bottom of the bumper with that gray cladding that you have. These are also, of course, sealed behind the lens, so it's going to keep them protected from water and debris, which is again great because they sit so low down on the bumper. You also get this metal heat sink down in the back, and you even get adjusters down on the bottom too, which is a really nice feature to have. Now, as the name implies, of course, these are LED lights, so they're going to cast a bright white light down the road to help supplement your headlights. You're going to get a wide beam of light low down, so if you live in a place where you get a lot of inclement weather or somewhere where there's a ton of potholes like we have here in the Northeast, these are going to be a boon for you, especially in those months where it gets dark so early. And given that these are LED bulbs, you don't have to worry about them burning out since they have such a long lifespan. They're going to match very nicely with the LED headlights you can get on the Silverados from the factory too, so if your truck already has those, it's going to be a great match. But even if you don't have those LED headlights, these are still going to look great, and they're going to be a nice addition to the lighting in the front of your truck. Now, I talked about the price a bit already, but it really does bear repeating. These come in around $200, and I think they're a great upgrade for what is a really reasonable price. Now, you could easily spend more on a set of additional LED lights or something like one of those big light bars, but the integration and even these smoked lenses here, I really think are worth the price of admission. And that's going to bring us nicely to the install. These will come in at a 1 out of 3 on the difficulty meter, and you should figure on it taking about an hour to get them installed. Now, all the wiring that you need to run them is included in the kit, as is a new switch. Now, we have seen some questions about wiring these to a factory fog light switch, and I'm sure that's possible, but keep in mind that it will probably take some additional wiring and maybe even some programming by your dealer to make that happen. So if you want to get creative and really get them very well integrated, absolutely go for it. But if you want to get these in and working right away, it's a very straightforward process, and everything you need is right there in the box. And to show you that process right now, let's head on over to the install bay.
The tools you're going to need for this installation include a drill with a Phillips bit, an electric or regular ratchet, an extension, 7, 10, and 13 millimeter deep sockets, diagonal cutters, trim removal tool, wire crimping tool, a power tester, zip ties, and optional are box cutters and the T-Con and spade connectors. How's it going, everybody? Today I have a set of fog lights I'm going to show you how to install on our 19 Silverado. So let's get started. We're going to start by removing the covers where our fog lights are going to go. We have one on either side of the bumper here, and they're held in by 3 7mm screws. There's one here and one here. Let me show you how to take them out. All right, we're under the truck on the back side of the bumper, and the 3 screws I was talking about are right here. This is the first one. Right above that is the second one. And then to the right of that is the third. And then the cover comes right out. And for the other side, just repeat the same steps. Now we're going to mount our fog lights up. As you can see, they're labeled right and left. So this is the right side. Put this one in. using the factory hardware. And again, we're just going to repeat the same steps on the other side. Now we need to remove the negative battery cable before we do our wiring. So I'm using a 10mm deep socket to remove this cable by loosening the nut on top. We got our wiring harness here for our fog lights, as well as a harness for the switch that goes inside the car. We're going to route this before we tap into any wires, so let's get that started. I got the wiring harness here. I got the ends with the fog light plugs. So I'm going to take the long end and I'm going to route it in between the fuse box and this brace here. And I'll have to go underneath the vehicle in order to grab it and pull it the whole way through, but you can start it up here. And I'm gonna pull it all the way through until I get, show you where I'm gonna end up at. Probably right here at the relay. All right, I'm gonna go under the car and pull it the whole way through. From underneath the vehicle, if you routed it the way I did, you should be able to grab it from here. So just move the fender liner out of the way a little bit, and you should be able to find it up around here in this area. Mine came out right here, so I'm just gonna pull it the rest of the way out from here. All right, and once you get both of the fog light connectors out, you can probably stop pulling at that point and go back up to the top and check where your wiring harness is at this point. I went back up to the top of the vehicle and checked out the wiring harness, and everything checks out good. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug these into the fog lights at this point. So the short one goes to the right fog light. And I'm gonna take the rest of the harness and route it behind these brackets here in the bumper. And there's also a couple good spots to zip tie, so I'm going to take care of that as well. Then just make sure you have enough length as they're zip tied down so you don't have too much tension on the connector and the harness when it's plugged in. Back at the top of the truck now, I'm going to route these wires, or at least just lay them out so we know which way they're going. So I have the relay here. I'm going to mount it to the lid for this demonstration, You could also mount it to the metal right here, which might be a better spot, because if you mount it to the lid here, every time you go or you need to get into the fuse box, you're going to have to take the relay off. But just for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to mount it here. And we're going to lay our wires out just so we know where they're going. So these go to the battery, so they'll be in this direction. And then this white wire has a connector on the end of it. So I'm going to lay the connector over this way, because we will be routing it that way soon. All right, so for mounting the relay into plastic, we can just use a regular screw like this. If you are going to mount it into the metal, you would need a self-tapping screw with this cutting end on the point of it. So I got a Phillips bit on my drill. And I did open the lid to check to make sure that I'm not going to be drilling into anything. Another good tip is to don't use a longer screw than you need to, just to be safe. Make sure you're not drilling into something electric in there. This is the connector wire that I spoke about earlier that we routed in this direction. I'm going to lay it down in the radiator shroud here. I found some good spots to zip tie it to, and I'm going to show you how I did this because it's a little tricky. It's not that hard, it just requires a little patience. But these are the holes here which I'm zip tying to. And the only tricky part is when you put the zip tie through, it just wants to go straight down into the radiator shroud. So if you actually take your wire and kind of loop it down into the hole like this, and then put your zip tie through, you can see it kind of come through there, and then it'll go in front of your wire, and you can use the wire to pull it back up like so you can grab the other end. And just lay your wire inside and secure it. And there's 4 spots along the radiator shroud here that I'm using to secure this wire. So now that we got our switch connector routed over this direction, I'm going to find a grommet or a hole in the firewall that I can route my connector through, or at least the rest of the connector wires, so I can connect it back here. Now you can use a grommet or you can drill. For the purposes of this demonstration, we won't be drilling through the firewall, but if you do decide that you find a better spot where you can drill a hole through, just make sure that you put a grommet through that hole so that you don't have the metal cutting through the wires. So this is our switch and our switch connector. The location which we're going to route this through, I'll show you a little later, but it's actually through the grommet where the hood latch release cable goes, and the connector will not fit through that grommet. So what I'm going to do is depin this connector so that I can feed the wires through the firewall. Once I get the wires through the firewall, I can reconnect the connector. So I'm going to show you how to depin this using a de-pinning tool. If you don't have one of these, you could use a really, really small flathead screwdriver. If you are gonna go this route, like I said earlier, you know, it's up to you if you wanna drill into your firewall, but we are going to be using that grommet for this demonstration. So with your connector in hand, if you look at the pins, on the one side of the pins in here, there's a little barb. That's what holds the metal pins in place inside the connector. So what you have to do with your de-pinning tool or your flathead screwdriver is press down at the very bottom of the pin where the barb is, press down and kind of push through at the same time. Or if you can give it a little tension on the wire from the backside, as you're pressing the barb, you should be able to get the pin out. Also, before you do take these out, make sure you note the location of the wires and the order of the wires. Yeah, so just make sure you take note of the order of the wires before you take them out, so when you put them back in, they're in the right order. So this is one of the pins out, and this is the barb right here that I was speaking of. So when you're inside the connector, you're gonna slide this down and push that barb down as you're pulling on the wire. Now we're going to feed these wires through the grommet for the hood release handle. And once we get all 3 wires through, we'll pull the rest of the harness through just a little bit and then reconnect this connector. All right, so we're inside the truck now, and we're going to find the grommet where we're going to route the switch wires through. So if you find the hood release latch and then find the wires, the cable behind it, follow that cable all the way to the firewall, and you'll come to the rubber grommet, and you should be able to pull it out relatively easy. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut it a little bit at the bottom just to open up the grommet a little bit. This is optional. It's up to you if you want to do it or not. You should be able to route the wires through without doing this, but it might make it easier if you do give it a little cut. So I was able to pull the grommet out of the firewall, and as you can see, I just sliced it down this thinner part, and once I did that, I was able to actually pull it down along the cable and show you guys, and it's probably going to make it easier to pull the wires through as well. To make it even easier, if you get some soapy water and just squirt a little bit inside of here so that you can pull the wires through easier, that is not a bad idea. Then once we get the wires through, we go ahead and close this back up and put some tape around it and put it back through the firewall. All right, once you have enough of the wire through, go ahead and route it through the hole in the firewall as well. And then we're gonna go into the engine bay and pull it the rest of the way through. All right, we got our wire through the firewall, and we're gonna locate our hood release cable, which is this one right here. And if we just follow that one down, we can locate the wires we just routed through. Once you get them, go ahead and pull them through a little bit more. And check inside the truck too. Make sure you have enough length so that you can mount your switch where you want it to be. And I'm gonna check that right now. So here's our wires through the firewall. So now I'm ready to connect or repin the connector. And like I said, just make sure that you have them in the right order. I took a picture before I unpinned it, and mine was black, blue, white with this pin on the bottom side. Yours might be different, so just be aware of that. And you might need your depinning tool or flathead screwdriver just to push them back into the connector and lock them down into place. And I'll show you how to do that here in a moment. All right, so with your depinning tool or your flathead screwdriver, once you have them in position, go ahead and push on the metal part of the pins so that you can push the barb through the connector and reseat them. Don't want these coming back out. Good. Once that is back together, we can go ahead and connect it here. This one did not get seated properly. Once you have it connected, we're going to go ahead and zip tie it right along the cable, the hood release cable. I'm going to take all the slack through and leave the rest here in the engine bay. Now that we got the switch wires ran, routed, and connected, we have to find a power source for the switch, which is going to be a power source from the parking light harness. So I already took the liberty of doing that for you, so I'll just show you how I did that. Using a power tester, connect one end to the negative cable on the battery, turn the parking lights on, and then probe wires until you find one that has 12 volts. Once you find that wire, turn off the parking lights and test it again to make sure it does turn off when you turn the light switch off. So the wire I found is connected to this headlight. So the light connector has a safety clip that you have to pull back. You can do it by hand. And then it's a normal push pin. You push in, pull out the connector. Then there's also two Christmas tree wire ties that you have to undo in order to get enough of it up so that you can tap into it. So the wire that I found is this yellow wire that is second from the left. So it's black wire first, then the yellow wire that I'm going to be tapping into. I'm going to use a T-con connection or tap. If you don't want to use one of those, you can also cut and splice and solder. Up to you, but for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to be using a T-tap. So this is the T-tap here. I'm going to place the wire inside. And it kind of self-taps or self-splices. And then when you shut it, just make sure it clicks into place. And then we have to take the red wire that comes from our switch connector, and we're going to crimp on a connector to go into our T-tap. All right, so here's the spade connector. I have this wire stripped and twisted already. And when you crimp it, just make sure you give it a little tug, make sure it's in there nice and tight. Make sure you don't have any insulation coming through. With your spade connector crimped, you can actually take it down past this big gang connector here, and there's a hole in the frame where you can route the wire through. To make it a little cleaner install, hide the wire better. Then you can connect it to your T-fitting and plug the headlight harness back in. Now we can connect the ground for the switch connector, and to ground it, I'm going to be using this bolt right here in the frame, and to take that out we need a 10mm socket. And with this style of connector, you don't actually have to take the bolt the whole way out. Just bring it up high enough where you can slide the connector in. And tighten it back down. Now that we have our switch connector wired up, we can wire in our main harness, and I'm going to use the positive battery lead here. So what we're going to do is take the cover off by pushing in these two tabs and pulling it up. We're going to take the red wire off of our main harness. I'm actually going to route it through the hole here in the battery cover so that it's not getting pinched, so the wire's not getting pinched when we put the lid back on. We're going to bring up the positive battery nut here. And again, we don't have to take it all the way off, because with this style connector we can just slide it in and then tighten it back down. Make sure this is nice and snug so you have a good connection. Then we can put our cover back on and connect the negative wire. All right, so I'm going to reconnect the negative lead first onto the battery, and it's going to spark. Don't let it startle you. Now before you tighten the 10mm nut, we're going to slide the negative connector on. All right, now we can tighten it back down. And then just give the negative terminal a little wiggle, make sure it's nice and tight, and you're good to go. I'm gonna secure the fuse right here to this wire harness. Now there's different ways you could do it. In this location, it's a little tricky, so I feel like wire tying it here is the best option. And then after this, I'm going to just tidy up the wires and test the lights out. All right, so here's where we left our switch, and we're gonna mount it right here next to the hood release. And it is double-sided tape, so we're gonna peel the protective film off. Go ahead, place it right here so it's easy to access. And then when you turn your parking lights on, you can see that it lights up. Press it, turn it on, light turns green. And that's going to wrap it up. That's going to wrap up this review and install of the smoked LED fog lights for your 19 to 21 Silverado. Thanks for watching, and for all things Silverado, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.